to another episode of The Love Shack. I'm your host, Dr. Love, Big Al.
And I'm your co-host, Charrming Charles. Good evening, Albert.
Good evening, and we got another co-host too, a man who needs no introduction, and it's an honor to have him here. He is none other than NFW's IronMan, Rob Conway. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be here on The Love Shack.
It's good to have you here, and I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of questions for you. Actually, Charles, you're the man for this. You're good at conducting these, so I'll tell you what, I've got a lot of footage of Rob on the computer, and if you want to start it off and talk to the Iron Man, I'll show the footage of him in action, and we're going to get this started. So are you ready, Charles?
Sounds good to me. First off, thank you, Rob, for taking time out of your schedule. I know you're busy and got lots of things going on, but if you don't mind, I'm going to get right to the point, my friend.
Hey, I've always got time for you guys, man. You just ask away, and I'll try to answer it the best I can.
Well, thank you so much. I know you grew up over in New Albany, Indiana, and I grew up over in Louisville, and first thing I want to ask you is, can you tell me about growing up in Indiana and your athletic background and how you got into bodybuilding and how long you did that before you pursued wrestling?
Well, growing up here in New Albany, the big wrestling that we watched growing up was the USWA. Most everybody here grew up watching Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee. And even though I played basketball and baseball and ran track, I always watched wrestling.
Right.
So here in New Albany and Indiana in general, basketball is really popular. So I was a basketball player and played all the way up through high school and actually got a college scholarship to play basketball at Graceland University. And always still watched wrestling, even though I never thought it was a possibility of something that I could ever get into. And then I started lifting weights to get in better shape for basketball, and I found that once I started lifting weights, I liked the way it made me feel, and started getting bigger, started getting noticed by girls, and next thing I know, I'm not playing basketball at all. I'm just lifting weights, and the weightlifting, and then later getting into the bodybuilding contest because I wanted to show off all that I'd accomplished in the gym. That's the thing when you're competitive. You want to be able to kind of show off all your hard work, and that's where bodybuilding came in.
Right. Okay, now my next question is, when you decided that you were going to be a wrestler, how did you approach it, and how did you get to OVW, and who was your main trainer when you got there?
Kind of a funny story on how I actually got into wrestling training is that I had met Nick Dinsmore around town. I mean, we were both pretty well known, him being from Clarksville, me being from New Albany.
Right.
And I'd heard that he started wrestling, so I knew him, but wasn't really on a basis where we just like hung out or anything. I just knew him from the gym and different places, so I looked his number up in the phone book and called him and said, "Hey, it's Rob Conway." He knew who I was, and then I said, "Here, you've done that pro wrestling." I said, "How you like it?" He said, "I like it just fine." I said, "Can you tell me any more about it?" And he said, "No, just, if you want to do it, then you got to go to the wrestling school that I went to, the Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling." And I kept asking him all kinds of questions about it, but he really would just tell me, "Hey, if you really want to try it, go talk to Danny." Just so happens the Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling was on my way to work every day, and I passed that sign all the time. So one day I got the nerve, thought, man, this is what I want to do. Stopped in and talked to Danny, and then pretty much signed up from there and really thought, hey, I'll do this wrestling school for 3 months, and I'll be wrestling The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin on TV here in about 3 or 4 months.
Well, I know you're a determined guy. That came down the road later. But what I want to ask you now, you touched on knowing Nick. I know you guys came down here to Nashville and you wrestled for, I believe it was Burt Prentice's Music City Wrestling. And if I'm not mistaken, you were called Limited Edition. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we were just Nick and Rob when we came down there, but then Bert's the one that gave us the name Limited Edition.
You guys ran a heck of a feud. I remember with Steve and Reno, Stephen Dunn and Reno Riggins. How long did you guys stay as a tag team?
We tagged up for about the first year and a half of my career.
So you'd say there was a
when you can watch tapes of me and Nick wrestling, and if you don't look close enough, I can't tell who's who. I mean, we looked almost the same. We were built the same, wore the same gear, had the same haircuts. I mean, we were always, traveled together. I mean, we were a team. And when sometimes I'd be watching the tape of it, and there'd be a move, and I think, man, I don't remember doing that move. And I go, oh yeah, it was Nick. I mean, to this day, in this area, when people think of Nick Dinsmore, they think of Rob Conway, or Rob Conway and Nick Dinsmore. If I go into a restaurant, somebody will go, hey, Nick was in here the other day. I mean, we're just always affiliated because we started out together, and then our careers kind of went paralleled each other all the way up through for the last 15 years.
Right. We've talked before about this. We know you went to Danny Davis's. Can you touch on Rip Rogers a little bit for me? I know that he was one of your teachers, if not your main teacher. Is that right?
Well, Danny Davis was my trainer. Rip Rogers was my first opponent, and then I actually wrestled with and against Rip for probably the first couple years of my career. I mean, I wrestled Rip hundreds of times, so he wasn't my trainer, but I certainly learned a lot from him because wrestling him all the time, and then later we became a team, and even though he was my teammate, it was more like a trainer because he had so much more experience than I did. I was just trying to learn as much from him as I could.
Right. Well, now, you said a while ago that you thought, well, I'm going to go up here to the WWE, I'm going to wrestle The Rock and whoever. Tell me how it felt when you finally got to WWE.
Well, by the time that I got there, it was about 3 years after I started training that I got a contract with WWE. And prior to that, I got called up and got to do some of their shows, but never had any matches. I always ended up, doing some stuff backstage and just kind of as an extra. When I finally got his contract and then got called up to be on the main roster as a member of Raw, I mean, it really felt as if all the hard work that I had done was coming to where it was paying off. There's a lot of dues you pay in any business, in any sport. And I felt like I'd paid my dues, and it was my time. I was excited about it, and it just felt like it was the right time. If it had happened sooner, it would have been too soon. If it happened later, it would have been too late. It's just everything happens for a reason, and timing is really important.
I agree with you 100%. I was in the music business all my life, and it's pretty much like that, Like you said, it can either be too soon or too late. Now, I want to ask you something, too. With the first night that you did Raw, how did that differ from, say, walking out at OVW? I know it had to be a trip walking out there and seeing all those people. Just tell us how you felt the first night when you were headed towards the ring.
I was excited. It's just exciting. The people, the production, the pyro, the Titantron. The ring is the same size as the ring that I trained in. All those things are the same. The actual wrestling is pretty much the same, whether you're on Raw or whether you're at New Focus or whether it was in OVW. But it's just the size of the arena and the amount of people and the whole production, the people backstage is just so much bigger, and it's just a very exciting feeling to come out and be a part of something that you watched on TV for such a long time, and then realize that now somebody's watching you and thinking, man, I want to be where he is, or I want to be like him, and that you have fans, because it's just a lot of gratitude, just like excited about it. There's all the hard work was paying off, and sometimes you don't even realize it while you're doing it. It's not till, it takes a little while for it to sink in.
Right. Well, now, it's like I said, in an indie show, let's say 300, 400, 500 people sometimes. How does that differ, though? I mean, you had to be like, whoa, I'm here. I mean, did the crowd, or after a while, is it just like walking out to an indie show? I mean, just they're there and you're ready to perform.
Yeah, it's not really overwhelming, the amount of people are there, because with the lights and everything, sometimes when you do a move or you say something, the crowd reaction takes a lot longer for you to hear it. People are so far away. But the few hundred people that are ringside are the ones that you seem to really connect with, and that's the same way whether it's at a New Focus show, an Ohio Valley Wrestling show, or a WWE show, because those are the ones that are the closest. But the difference, one of the main differences as far as like when you're talking, things like that, in a bigger show like that, a bigger arena, is that you have to look up and make eye contact with people who are sitting in the cheap seats, the ones that I used to go and sit in, you know, because you have a tendency to, at most independent shows, because the people are all at one level, you're kind of looking down at the audience. So those are things you got to remember, that you know, you got to look up, because there's people that are, you know, far enough away you couldn't hit a golf ball and hit them.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was saying. You know, it's got to be hard. Like, I know in playing, I'm going back to my music thing, but like at nightclub, you can always make the, eye contact with that one person out there in the front row, where that many people, you know, gosh, I know how you must feel. But that's pretty cool. So you felt in control. I mean, you were comfortable right off the get-go, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been trained to do. I mean, when you're wrestling 2-3 nights a week for 5 or 6 years before you get to that level, I mean, it's still new to you. The wrestling matches, talking on the microphone, that wasn't new to me. You know, growing up in Indiana, we probably averaged 3,500 people a game to our home basketball games.
Right.
So I mean, I was used to signing autographs when I was in 8th and 9th grade. So all these things I felt like really prepared me. The basketball, playing in front of large crowds, and bodybuilding where you're up there and you're posing and trying to entertain people without talking. I mean, physically, and then getting into wrestling. It just felt like everything that I'd done up to that point was preparing me for that first night when I walked out on Monday Night Raw.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, you know, like you said, all that, I didn't, you know, like I said, I'm from right around where you are. Local basketball is really a big thing there, and so is football, so yeah, I can see that. Okay, now I want to ask you something, Rob. You and I have talked this before, you know, riding down the road or whatever. Tell us about doing promos at WWE. And were they written out, or was it off the cuff just like it is in the Indies, or how does that go?
Well, the difference between the WWE and the independents is like when I go out and New Focus Wrestling, and I'm talking to, you know, NFW Nation, those are my words. That's what I'm feeling. I mean, this is the real deal. I mean, this is, you know, like what I've been going through with Rich, Master Rich. Me and him were friends. And then, you know, now his attitude, he's got a bad attitude now, but it's that way all the time. I mean, you can call, you know, I've had people that tell me that they've called his house and he's got that attitude. So, I mean, this is, you know, the way it is. In the WWE, they're not a wrestling promotion. It is a television show. So a lot of the things that you say, they might not be written word for word, but you're pretty much influenced as to here's what we want you to do. Whereas at independent wrestling, is that when I'm myself, what you see is what you get. The IronMan, if I'm in a bad mood, then you get the bad version of the IronMan. If I'm feeling good and everybody's been treating me good and things are going my way, you get the guy that you've seen for the last year. What I say is coming from my, you know, from the heart, whether you agree with it or not. Whereas in WWE, sometimes you don't, a character doesn't get popular because it's not what the guy's feeling. He's having to say something that somebody else wants him to say.
Right. Well, I've noticed, you know, like I managed you for what, 2-3 years, at least 2 years, and you haven't changed. I mean, you're still the same guy that I knew. Whereas Rich, I don't know. I think Al's going to touch down there with you later on about that. But yeah, that's pretty weird there. But yeah, you're pretty much what you see is what you get. Like I said, you haven't changed a bit from when I had you. And so. One more thing before we get deep into this. The pairing of you and Sly and Renee, the Resistance. I remember remember the night that you I guess it was against the Dudley Boys, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You came out and you were like an Air Force guy, maybe?
Yep.
Tell us about that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, a couple weeks before that, I was going to debut, and I was going to be with Stevie Richards and Victoria, and I was going to be the golden boy, because I had curly blonde hair, and me and Stevie both wore pink trunks.
Right.
And I was going to wrestle Tommy Dreamer. And then about an hour before the show started, John Laurinaitis came to me and said, hey, we decided that you're not debuting tonight, and your match has been canceled. So I immediately was down about that. You know, there's my big chance. But he said, we're going to bring you back next week, and we've got something else for you. We think it might be better. They wanted me to get a military outfit and bring it to the show. So I immediately thought that I'm going to be a hero, and I went and I spent about $200 on the nicest Army outfit that I could find. I made myself like a lieutenant or a captain, you know. I was only like 27, 28 years old, so I didn't want to make myself like a brigadier general. Go too far with it. So I came back to TV. They brought me back to Raw the next week, and I showed them my uniform. They said, wow, that's a beautiful Army outfit, but we can't use it because the Army is one of our sponsors. And what you're going to be doing is not something that they're going to want to be known for. I was like, okay, whatever you want me to do, it's a TV show. Just want to be part of the team.
Right.
And they put me in an Air Force uniform that I later found out was like 5-10 years removed. Like that wasn't even the current uniform. If somebody had saw me who knew anything about the Air Force, they would have been like, what's this guy wearing an old uniform? And I came from out of the crowd and was saluted by the Dudleys, and they got everybody chanting USA, and then I lowered the boom on them by laying them out with their own flag and joined La Resistance in front of
That was cool.
about 15,000 people live and another 5 million watching at home.
How did that feel after you did that? I bet that was a super rush, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And I've been sitting out in the crowd since before the show started in the front row. So I was just kind of waiting for my opportunity, and then came home, and my mom said, I thought you were going to be a hero. She'd helped me put that uniform together, her and my dad, and when they saw what I did, they were still proud that their son was on TV, but I don't think they was really all that happy with the way I was portrayed.
Right. Okay, now I want to ask you something. We touched on I want to ask you this. People you have enjoyed working, in NSW or WWE, and what was your favorite match ever? WWE, Indies, or whatever?
Oh, man, I don't think I could put a finger on one favorite match. I was thinking about that today. I probably had about 1,700, maybe 1,800 matches.
Right.
And to say that there was, because each part of my career, I have different matches that are favorites, from the first year to, one that was maybe within the last 6 months. So there's a lot of big moments, winning the tag team championships for the first time in Montreal when you're coming out with the Quebec flags. And that was a really big moment. We were wrestling Chris Benoit and Edge, but it wasn't really the match with them so much as just the feeling of winning in front of the crowd, and they actually gave us such a standing ovation. It was the only time I was ever cheered for when I was in the WWE, and they gave us a standing ovation, and we celebrated in the crowd with them. I mean, that was a really cool moment. And then after I left La Resistance, I had a moment in Dallas, Texas, where I came out and interrupted probably the biggest reunion of legends of all time in the ring in the WWE. It was called WWE Homecoming.
I remember that.
With Arn Anderson and Ricky Steamboat and Dusty Rhodes and Steve Keirn, superstar Billy Graham. think I was the last person probably in wrestling to get the claw from Kevin Von Erich, and it, you know,
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing, just pretty amazing just to be in the ring with all those guys, let alone get to come out and give them a little tongue lashing.
Right.
Hey, Charles.
Yes, sir.
If it's okay, it's going pretty fast, so I got a couple questions. If it's all right if I ask Rob a couple real quick?
Sure. Let me just get this one finished up here, and then if you don't mind.
Okay. That's fine, sir. That's fine.
So you say that's probably your favorite WWE moment?
It's one of them, and there's a lot of you know, pretty cool moments. Wrestling Eugene in his first match in the WWE after I wrestled him hundreds of times as Nick Dinsmore. You know, that was it was really you know, a big moment. It was such a big moment for him that I was happy to be a part of it.
Right. I remember the first night that you were very convincing. I mean, that was so cool. You know, poor Eugene, he's just bum fuzzled, and you're sitting there just ready to get him. I forget who was holding you back, but I really enjoyed that segment. Okay, I got one more question I want to ask you. Actually, I got a bunch more, but I guess we'll run out of time here. But then we're going to turn it over to Albert. I know that you are a big help. I guess it's safe to say that you helped train at Danny's. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, by the time that the WWE signed OVW to a developmental contract, Danny really didn't get in the ring anymore, so most of his training, he would be on the outside of the ring, and it was Rob, get in there and show Brock how to do a hip toss.
Right.
You know? And Rob, get in there and do this. It was either me or Nick always. Hey, one of them, you know, Nick, Rob, get in there and do this. So we were the hands-on guys relaying the training that we got from Danny and being the hands-on with the new talent.
Mm-hmm. I remember you telling me about a young guy that you had helped, and you said, I know you told me you used to be in charge of doing promos, and there was this young guy that you would like, you turned the mic to him, and he could cut a promo just like nobody's business right then there. Can you tell us who that was?
John Cena.
Yep.
Yeah, I told him early on, I mean, you could just see it. I was like, you're going to be a big star. And at the time, he was a better talker than he was wrestler. And then his wrestling really came up, and you could just tell that this guy had everything it took to be, you know, I mean, I don't know if I could envision him being as successful as he is, but I knew he was going to be a big star from just watching him over a few short months, you know, at the beginning.
Right. Okay, I got one more, and then I'm going to turn it over to Al, and then I want to ask you this here. I noticed you give as much, seems to me, it's the indie shows like NFW, that's where we work, and that's my favorite indie, of course, but it seems like, am I safe in saying you give as much there as you did at WWE? I mean, you're a great entertainer, and you know, I'm back there in the backstage area, and I mean, like you said a while ago, you're Rob, whether it's Rob the entertainer or Rob the guy, you know, that we sit around and talk, but is it safe to say you give as much there as you did in the WWE?
Anytime that I'm wrestling, I mean, I feel like it's fun for me.
Right.
But I'm going to give you 100% no matter where I'm at. If it's WWE, if it's OVW, if it's New Focus, if it's JCW, NWA, because, I mean, in the independents, I mean, I'm my own brand. So if someone says that, man, I went to see the IronMan Rob Conway, and, you know, he really didn't put out the effort, I mean, that word is going to spread throughout the business, the different promoters, and then fans are going to, I don't know if I want to go see that guy.
Right.
Because once I lace my boots up and put my gear on, I mean, it doesn't matter to me if there's 100 people there or if there's 5,000. It's not the fans' fault that more fans didn't come to the show. I mean, they paid their $8 or $10 to come to a show, and they want you to play. You know, I mean, they want you to wrestle and work just as hard as if there were thousands of people there, because it's not their fault. They got their kids, put them in the car, drove to the place, came out, got there an hour before the show. They did all the same work as if they was going to a WWE show.
Right.
And they expect the guys to put just as much effort out and not penalize them and not give as much because there wasn't as many people at the show as maybe, WrestleMania.
Right. Oh, I noticed you always got time for the fans. Like New Year's Eve, that match you and Rich had was incredible. That's probably one of my favorite matches of all time. I mean, any kind of match. And you guys tore the house down, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to seeing the next show. But, you always, like I said, you're always nice to children. It doesn't matter what character you are, if it's safe to say character, but I just want to tell you I appreciate you, and thank you so much for letting me talk. I could talk to you all night. Everybody knows I can run my mouth, but I think Al's got some questions. And thank you so much, Rob, and I probably cut you off on that last question, but Albert's ready to go, and thanks, buddy, and I'll see you the 24th, I guess it is, and I want to urge everybody to come out. And Al, sorry I run my big mouth, and I'm turned over to you, my friend.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, Rob, I got just a couple simple questions for you. Rob, you've been around a long time, and you've seen wrestlers come, and you've seen wrestlers go. I'm just wondering if you can just, for the ones who are now in training, and the ones who are thinking about training, and ones who are just starting out in the business, what advice can you give them to help them be successful?
The main advice I would give them is to listen to wrestlers that have been where they want to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of veteran wrestlers in a lot of locker rooms.
Yeah.
And you will listen to advice from everybody. But just because you listen to somebody doesn't mean that you don't always have to do exactly what they tell you to do, as far as you're going to get a lot of different advice out there.
Yeah.
And in wrestling, just like in any business or sport, there's a lot of guys that maybe have been in the business for 20 years, but what they didn't tell you is that they wrestled, 10 times that first year.
Yeah.
And then the second year, they didn't wrestle at all, and then they were hurt for 5 years, and then they retired. So that 20 years really consists of about 40 matches.
Okay.
So if you're new, try to find somebody who has been to the level of success that you're wanting to achieve.
Yeah.
And try to, if you have to bug them, ask them, please, will you watch my match? Is there some advice you could give me? Can I sit next to you in the locker room? Can I drive to the shows with you? Because it's hard for you to learn a lot from somebody that doesn't know a lot.
Yeah.
So listen to everybody, but try to really learn. If you want to be the NFW champion, then you should try to learn from someone who has been the NFW champion.
There you go.
If you want to get to the WWE, then it's best if you find a guy at your show that has, participated in WWE matches or shows.
Yeah.
Try to learn from them. I mean, that would be my biggest advice as far as when you come to a show, listen to everybody, but also pick out the guys that you want to be like, or they have the success you want. I'm going to go learn from them.
There you go. Great. Okay, Rob, now March 24th, NFW presents Breakfast Revenge. You're going to be in the heavyweight title rumble, and you know that there's 19 other competitors, and they're saying you're the odds-on favorite because you're the biggest and strongest and one of the toughest in NFW. But being that, it also makes you the number one target also for 19 other men. So even though like I said, do you think that that you are the number one target? And if so, give us your thoughts on that rumble match then.
Man, the Rumble match, I think, is going to be one of the most exciting matches that NFW's ever had. It's the first Rumble they've ever had. And it's not just a battle royal. See, I've heard people call it a battle royal, and it's not.
Yeah.
There's going to be over 25 guys, and it's going to start out with 2 guys enter.
Yeah.
And then every minute, a different person's going to come to the ring. So you really are going to have an advantage if your number is later. I mean, if you're number 1 or 2, that the odds are stacked against you, because that means that in order for you to even make it to the final guy getting introduced, you're going to be in there for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's a lot of guys. And the only way to get eliminated is to get thrown over the top rope, and both feet have to touch the ground.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're the first guy or the second guy, then you're going to have to, if there's 25 people in it, you're going to have to beat 24 guys.
Yeah.
Now, there's people who are going to get eliminated, you know, who get called out third or fourth. They might get eliminated. So the guy who gets 25, you know, the 25th guy out, by the time he comes out, there might only be 3 or 4 guys left.
Yeah.
And he's going to be completely fresh. So where you get your number drawn is really going to make a big difference into your chances of actually winning. Do I think I'll be the #1 target when I come out? I think so.
Yeah.
I think one of the other biggest targets is going to be Vic the Bruiser, because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to be hard to get over the top rope.
Yeah.
He might have guys that normally are his buddies and people that he teams with, but, you know, in order for them to win, then he's going to have to get eliminated. So usually the bigger guys like that, you'll see guys that normally don't have anything to do with each other will team up in order to just to throw out the biggest guy, because it might take more than 1 or 2 guys to throw out a big guy like Vic.
Right.
So, you know, I might be strong, but, I mean, I only weigh 210 pounds, so, you know, anybody can pick you up. And, you know, even if you're a good wrestler, you can still get picked up. So, I mean, I think I'll be a big target. I think Vic's going to be a big target.
Yeah.
I think if there's some guys that normally are, you know, kind of opening match guys, or they're just, you know, just kind of establishing themselves in new focus, and there's 3 or 4 of those guys in there at once, and somebody like Flash or somebody like Rich, some guys that are main event guys that have been the champion before come out, I mean, they might team up and say, hey, let's get rid of this guy, because none of us can throw him out by ourselves, but if there's 4 or 5 of us, they'll be able to throw out a Rich or a you know, Vic or Flash, or, you know, just some of the more established guys. Scotty Wolf. I mean, there's a guy that's you know, he's been the champion before too. I think the guys that have been the champion are going to really get targeted by guys that are hungry and they've never been the main guy on the show, been the champion. I think that some of those younger guys might kind of stick together and try to eliminate the established guys and try to crawl their way to the top of New Focus.
Yeah. Okay. Rob, I tell you, it's an honor for you to be here. I thank you for being here with us, and I'm sure the NFW Nation is going to love this interview when we put on here. You're a great athlete, a great wrestler, and it's an honor to be here. And we can't wait to see you on March 24th during Reckless Revenge. I want to wish you the best on the Rumble. And Charles, I tell you what, anything you want to say before we spread the love?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Rob, for taking the time. Like I said earlier, I know you're a busy guy and you got lots of things going on with different promotions. And I'm just so glad that you're a part of NFW. It's just so good to have you back there. And that's about it. And I want to urge everybody to come out there the 24th, right, Albert?
That's right. All right, yeah. So
anyway, I guess it's time to go, and I'm going to run my mouth. Albert, what's the time for, buddy?
Oh, we've been on here for 35 minutes.
Well, I guess it's time to spread the love.
It's time to spread the love.
All right.
Hey, don't get any of that love on me. I appreciate you guys having me, but I don't know where some of that love has been.
Well, I think all we got.
We appreciate you, IronMan. I know you're going to do it to Conway.
That's right.
Okay, Charles, it's time to spread the love.
Just remember, NFW Nation, don't fight amongst yourselves. Spread the love. See you, Rob. See you, Albert.
Good night, my friends.